Hello, sir. How are you guys? Very well. Very well. You're ready to go to clinics? That's closer every day. Really close. Yeah. It will be good. It will be good. Decide where you're going to land yet? Not quite yet. Don't worry. Maybe. Yeah.
Days, just like 5 days long.
Yeah. We give you one. And then you're honestly, but all the after that way, be a lot of fun almost after the match. So yeah, life is ketosis very good.
When do you take it down?
The window's like October 15th.
Because our people is later, early 4.
I think. But it's good.
I'm in. This is pretty current. They're just going to go.
I'll tackle her.
I that's going to be my vacation, 2-week vacation.
There you go. Yeah. Yep. What
So are you going to the graduation on Thursday? I thought you said your niece and grannies. No.
I was just amazed how early.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's when we have our third year students in because it's so early, they start way too early. It's rough, isn't it? There's a lot of old people less than well, we have multiple. I don't know.
I wrote a small first.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many people actually did it.
Oh no. There wasn't even a, hey, next time please double spaces. And that was his fault. That's rough.
New faculty and the first week is supposed to be this is your first chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a mentorship opportunity, not a be harsh. He was doing right before well, right?
Well, there was a
Okay. Okay.
Somehow I think it's going to be okay.
So how long did you overlap with him? Yeah.
Interview.
Oh, so he wasn't here by the time you were hired.
No.
Okay.
What year did you come? In 97. Okay. So I interviewed with Marler in June. When I got here in November, he was gone in Anderson. I was faculty council president for 2 years working with him.
Oh, okay.
During the time that he was
Wow, you were old.
Yeah.
I was
phone there so I can
13
come back.
when he was.
Thanks for letting me know.
I know, but I didn't.
Did you interview with him yourself? Yeah, that's
Well, I was coming.
Oh, really? Wow.
I was in the second round.
Okay. And he apparently didn't flush you. Wow. Gotcha. Otherwise, would they be Now, that was before the Oprah race. Yeah. And so, you weren't part of that. That wasn't the reason. So you were just hiring. What was the impetus for your position?
So Roger Petty was looking for a GM.
Okay.
Ultimately Joel Carr.
Okay.
And when I interviewed with
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. No, not at all. Oh. Not an easy individual to get along with.
But he was university.
That's a weird set of shirts. Did you see that they dismissed a senior professor last week?
Over in Parsons Science
For forging medical letters.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. We have corralled Dr. Marler into a one space now. So he's been so busy talking to people and meeting people, and now we've got him so he can give his talk. So I would like to introduce our 2025 Distinguished Alumnus, Alumni Fellow, Dr. Ron Marler. He is a 1971 bachelor's degree, a 1973 DVM degree, and then he went to be a captain in the Army, and then he came back to do a PhD in pathology. And he has had an extraordinarily distinguished career in pathology, toxicology, and drug development. And as you look at his list of positions and accomplishments, it reads like maybe 3 people's careers put together. And so I also almost forgot the most important part. He was dean of the college in the 90s, just immediately before Ralph Richardson. Ralph, raise your hand. Also here was dean of the college. So he was dean of the college when I arrived here. He hired Judy Klimek. He maybe hired some of the other people that are in the room. So please help me give a warm welcome to Dr. Ron Marler.
No?
There we go.
There it is. There's a delay on that mic. He's okay.
No, I'll be right here. Will it pick it up?
Yep.
Good. Take this off.
Well, this one's a fresh one, but yeah. You want to try again?
Whatever you'd like.
Whatever you want. What's your day, dear?
They keep telling me that.
There you go.
Okay.
Now you can hear him? Say hello.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. All right, I'm going to preface by saying I apologize for my voice because of allergies. I had forgotten about the state of Kansas and allergies. And I happened to be watching a news program the other evening about the worst states, and in particular the worst city in America for pollen-borne allergies, and it happens to be my hometown of Wichita, Kansas. And I flew into Wichita yesterday, and I'd forgotten how bad the wind can be in Wichita, so it was blowing around pollen, et cetera. And I told my son, who was accompanying me on this trip, that we had to get in the car and close it up because I was sneezing and my asthma was acting up. So I'm hoping that my allergies will not bother you too much with voice. I want to thank Dean Rush for the introduction, and much of what she said I will cover in much more depth and detail. Being named the 2025 College of Veterinary Medicine Alumni Fellow is certainly an honor. And I'd like to thank the selection committee, and a special thanks to Howard Erickson, my friend and buddy, sitting there. Our college is extremely fortunate to have Howard document the history of its faculty and its alumni. And I'm making a little plea this afternoon. I told you I'd be a little controversial, but I think the college should anoint him as its historian laureate. So, Dean Rush, if you can do that, I would appreciate it. I have a housekeeping request. This is for Dean Rush. I recall a presentation in Dykstra Auditorium where as students, we were scheduled to have an equine lecture, but the lecturer was unavailable. Dr. Jake Mosier, many of you probably know Dr. Mosier, who was the head of Department of Surgery and Medicine, ushered in a frail Dr. Frank. And all of you know Dr. Frank has the E.R. Frank Award named after him. Dr. Frank moved behind the podium and he opened up his folder and he began reading in a low monotone, much as I'm reading now. As I recall, one of the letters he read was from General George Patton. He showed little recognition of his surroundings or the assembled students and was deeply pensive as he was making his presentation. After about 15 minutes, it became apparent that something was amiss with Dr. Frank, as he appeared to be unresponsive to the murmurs of my classmates. A couple of my classmates left to get Dr. Mosier, and you'd have to know Dr. Mosier, but in his usual typical ebullient manner, he came into the lecture hall and we acknowledged Dr. Frank with a round of applause. Dr. Mosier gathered up Dr. Frank's papers and escorted him from the room. You're probably saying, well, why is he telling us this? Well, I ask that if at any time during this presentation I appear to become catatonic and having a senior moment, if Dr. Rush, if you wouldn't mind to be so kind to escort me from the podium, it would be greatly appreciated. I have lived in Scottsdale, Arizona, my adopted home state, since 2004. One of my colleagues gave me the following while I was living in Madison, Wisconsin, and preparing to move to Scottsdale, Arizona. I have a warning on this presentation. The language and the prose, although edited, is somewhat colorful. I trust it will not overly offend anyone in the audience, and trust me, no animals were actually harmed, but the cat was inserted for effect. My colleague wrote the following. So, I moved to Arizona. Now this is a state that knows how to live. There are beautiful sunny days, warm, balmy nights, gorgeous sunrises and sunsets. What a place. It's beautiful. We finally found our home. I love it here. Mother's Day. It's really heating up. Got to 100 degrees today. It's not a problem. I live in an air-conditioned home, drive an air-conditioned car. What a pleasure it is to see the sun every day. My wife and I worship the sun. Memorial Day. I had the backyard landscaped with western plants today. Lots of cacti and rocks. What a breeze to maintain. No more mowing the lawn. Another scorcher today, but we love it here. June 5th. Temperature hasn't been below 100 degrees since Mother's Day. How do people get used to this damn heat? At least it's kind of windy, but it's getting used to this heat is taking longer than I expected. July 4th. I fell asleep by the community pool and got first and second degree burns over 60% of my body. I missed 3 days of casino bus tours. What a dumb thing to do. I learned my lesson though. You have to respect the old sun in a climate like this. July 10th. We got a cat named Lomita. Lomita snuck into the car when I left this morning. By the time I got to the hot car at noon, Lomita, unfortunately, had died and swollen up the size of a shopping bag and then popped like a water balloon. You can only imagine the smell. I learned my lesson, though. No more pets in this heat. Good old Mr. Sun strikes again. July 20th. The wind sucks. Feels like a giant freaking blow dryer, and it's hot as hell. The home air conditioner is on the fritz, and the RC repairman charged me $500 just to drive by and tell me that he needed to order parts. July 22nd. We've been sleeping outside on the patio for 3 nights now. We live in a multi-million-dollar home. We can't even go inside. Looks like Lomita is the lucky one. Why did I ever come here? July 25th. It's 115 degrees out. I finally got the air conditioner fixed today. Cost me $1,500, and it only lowers the house temperature to 85 degrees. I hate this stupid state. July 27th. If another smartass cracks hot enough for you today, I'm going to strangle him. Damn heat. By the time I arrive at the grocery store, the radiator is boiling over. I blew out the car windshield. My clothes are soaked, and I smell like baked cat. July 28th. I tried to run some errands today. I wore shorts. And when I sat on the car seat, I thought my backside was on fire. My skin melted to the seat. I lost 2 layers of flesh and all the hair on my legs. Now my car smells like burnt hair, suit flesh, and baked cat. July 29th. The weather report might as well be a damn recording. Hot and sunny, hot and sunny, hot and sunny. It's been too hot to do anything for 2 months, and the weatherman said it might really warm up next week. Does it ever rain in this damn desert? Looks like water rationing will be next. My $2,300 worth of cacti will just dry up and blow away. Even the cacti can't live in this damn heat. July 30th. Welcome to hell. The temperature got to 120 today. Cacti are dead. Again, forgot to crack the window and blew the damn windshield out of the car, and the installer came to fix it and said, "Hot enough for you today?" I lost it and strangled him. My wife paid $1,500 to bail me out of jail. Frickin' Arizona. What kind of sick, demented idiot would want to live here? I'll let you know how the trial goes. This is a fictional, at least I think, look at moving to Arizona, and yes, the summer last year was 100 degrees for 113 consecutive days, believe it or not. There are 5 million of us hardy souls living in the Phoenix area, and if you come in the summer, purchase oven mittens so you can hold on to the steering wheel. Better yet, visit in the winter, spend your money as tourists, but don't plan on staying. So that's my story about living in Arizona. And yes, it gets very hot there in the summertime, but it's beautiful, as many of you know, in the winter, so please come and visit in the winter. All right, I'm going to see if I can get this to work. Today I'm going to talk about a career well lived and still living. And still living in the sense that I have an active consulting business that I've had since 2018. But I'm going to walk you through my career in a retrospective, and I do it from a perspective of challenging many of you out there who are still students to say that there is something beyond treating companion animals, cattle and horses. Okay, and I will get to that as part of my career. It's a challenge standing before you and attempting to articulate something of value that you can take away from my education in veterinary medicine and veterinary pathology and my life experiences, all of which has served as a foundation for a non-traditional career in the private and public sectors. It's been a career which, as a young boy growing up in Wichita, Kansas, I could have never imagined. Throughout my career, I have traveled extensively to Europe and Asia. I've lived in multiple locations in the United States. In addition to those in the U.S., I developed close working and business relationships with colleagues in China, the U.K., and Germany. None of these experiences were on my radar screen when I first came to Kansas State in 1967. None of them. In fact, I probably thought the world ended at the eastern border of the state of Kansas. Much less from when I graduated from vet school, or my PhD in 1978. I hope this presentation will interest most of you and inspire some of you to explore opportunities that await you upon closer examination of your own aspirations. I promised Dr. Mosier, hopefully you can see this. So this is your quiz for the day. As a pathologist, I feel obligated to show a pathology slide. Only pathologists would come to a lecture and show a histopathology slide, okay? So this is your histopathology slide. This is actually kind of the interesting things that we do as pathologists in toxicologic pathology. I'm sure all of you recognize this as, wait a minute, I didn't hear any response. This section is a section of, yes, you are correct. This is bladder. This happens to be from a rat that was given a high dose of a promising chemotherapeutic drug. You can see on what is, I hope, the right-hand side of your screen, what remains of the transitional epithelium. There's hemorrhage edema of the lamina propria submucosa extending down into the muscularis, and a little bit of hemorrhage in the subserosal. So I'm sure you got that all of you got that correct. You all get 10 points. This is the last slide that I'm going to show in histopathology, so trust me, there will be no more quizzes. So I'm going to go back to the main presentation. How many of you remember the message from your high school commencement or college commencement speeches? none of you, kind of like this slide, you don't remember that that was bladder. I understand. Much less the people that give them. So in probably 10 years, they won't remember that I was here. So those neurons for me were long reprogrammed for other more important things, like where I put my car keys. And thankfully, I have Apple AirTags to help me out with that. And yes, I do remember where I park my car, and least most of the time. And most importantly, as my primary care physician tells me, I remember that I own a car. As most of you get older, that will be funny. But at this age, many of you are not old enough to recognize the fact that knowing where you parked your car or whether you have a car is the most important thing for you. As I reflect on the last 50 years of my career, I recognize that none of you are going to remember the details of what I talk about today, except perhaps the admonition that if you're considering moving to Arizona, don't. However, we're going to go over, I'm so proud of myself that even, because obviously we did not have PowerPoint when I grew up, that I was able to do this PowerPoint and put this in there, so I'm proud that this is in there. This is my PowerPoint slide on a point to consider. Point to consider is will pop up periodically throughout the presentation. With age supposedly comes wisdom, and so today I've chosen a few points of wisdom that I hope have influenced my career. My first point of being controversial. Are you an overachiever? And if not, perhaps you should strive to be. So think about it. Are you an overachiever? I have a confession to make, one that I'm unabashedly proud of. My resume is one of a classic overachiever. If you were to put my resume on one side of the ledger and my classmates' name on the other side in 1973, there isn't one person who would have matched my name with my resume. No one would mistake me for the poster child for geographic stability. I did not become attached to geographic locations or houses. Career advancement was always the main goal. My family moved 10 times during my career, and my wife and I owned 22 houses. And no, I was not a career military officer. On any given night, my wife and my children would not be surprised if I came home and announced that I had accepted another position and that we were relocating. I think that at one time I knew about as much about residential real estate as I did about my own profession. While not for everyone, it worked for my family, as I had a reasonably flexible children and worked with the best CFO, COO I could ever have worked for, my wife. Being an overachiever is not a bad thing, okay? Although some would say it is, but it's not a bad thing, provided you manage your personal and professional life. It is a recognition that while each of us has inherent intellectual capacities, no one has constraints on drive. I am reminded of a paraphrased quote from Pete Rose. Anybody go back far enough to know who Pete Rose was, a baseball player? Thank you. Few. Good. Pete Rose. A baseball player of my era. The intent of the quote struck with me throughout my career, and I use it today. When asked what he attributed his success to, he quipped that many baseball players had more natural talent than he had, but no one had more drive and hustle. Drive and hustle can level the intellectual playing field. So for all of you out there who are not exactly straight A students, there is hope for you. I was not a straight A student. Okay? Another point to consider. This one again is to my younger colleagues, but probably goes to my colleagues in the college also. Who you know will greatly influence what you know and how successful your career will be. And this is an important concept that you should, hopefully you will remember. Throughout the various phases of my career, I learned who you know can significantly influence what you know. And as a corollary to that, you should surround yourself with people of diverse backgrounds who are smarter than you. So who you know, okay, will influence what you know, and surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. It's essential that you foster the personal relationships you can during your career, especially those that bring a different perspective. Trust me, they will come in handy, and I'll get to some of those in a moment. In addition to the many people I was privileged to know in the pharmaceutical research and development, I was fortunate to work with finance, accounting, marketing, sales, human resources, personnel, senior business manager, venture capitalists, and I learned a tremendous amount from Mayo Clinic's researchers, ICU nurses, intensivists, and trauma surgeons. I was fortunate to attend professional advancement programs at Harvard and the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia. And all of these had a tremendous influence on my career. I had to update this slide because now everything, in my day, a Rolodex, anybody remember what a Rolodex is? Oh, good, there are a few that remember Rolodexes. Thank God there was a few. I'm going to talk to these people over here. There used to be something when I was in business, those who had the largest Rolodex were going to be the most successful. Nowadays, it's a digital thing. Everything is digital. But the point is that those with the most extensive Rolodex, whether it's the paper cards that you put in the Rolodex or the digital Rolodex that you have on your computer, I can guarantee you are going to be the most successful. I have to give a shout out to Luke Dunaway. Dr. Dunaway was a veterinarian in Topeka, Kansas. He has passed away. We all have our first mentor in our careers, and again, Dr. Dunaway was mine, who gave me a job in his small animal clinic in Topeka, Kansas in 1966. And so it began. Little did I understand then that the profession of veterinary medicine was far greater than caring for companion animals. The profession of veterinary medicine is far greater than caring for companion animals. And my career is a clear example of that. So those of you who are looking for a takeaway point, that's something to give consideration to. I'm going to go way back into my career mainly because I want to reminisce about it. So you're going to have to struggle with me as we go through this. I'm sure most of you know or do not know that I was an EMT for Riley County Emergency Services in the late 1960s and 70s. It was in many ways one of the most exciting and rewarding times of my life. I had the opportunity to drive around Manhattan, and I'm still drawn to the location of calls that I went to more than 50 years ago. I can see some of the events as if they happened yesterday. And you're probably asking yourself, why is he recalling these? Well, I'm going to circle back to it a little bit later on in the presentation, as it impacted one of my assignments at the Mayo Clinic. In veterinary school and focusing on being the best small animal practitioner I could be, that was my goal. I was going to own multiple clinics in the state of Kansas and be the best small animal practitioner that I could be. Today, my neighbors occasionally ask me medical questions about their pets, and I politely inform them that I take my feline pathology associate to a competent veterinarian. Not me. So, you can see how the effort I put into clinical veterinary medicine turned out for me. I never practiced one day in my life. I received an invitation to the military. Again, many of you in the audience will not understand what that word invitation means. Many of you will. We were invited to join the military. Either we could be deferred or we could join immediately. I was deferred and joined after I graduated in 1973. After my deferred status was immediately changed, I was assigned to Fort Riley. I was in charge of a herd of buffalo. To this day, I believe that they were the commanding general's pets. A sentry dog, not too sure how good he was at protection. However, he was a gentle giant. And most importantly, the commissary. So it was always good for Friday afternoon organoleptic testing of hamburgers, steaks, and hot dogs on the grill outside the clinic. I'm proud of my service because during my tour of duty, no foreign adversary invaded the state of Kansas. And this was all without me ever being issued a weapon. Thank God. In the military, when not protecting the state of Kansas from foreign adversaries, I became acquainted with a pathologist at Irwin Army Hospital who periodically invited me to come by and take a look at histopathology sections from interesting cases. And so it began. Dr. Jim Cook, who I consider is like a father figure to me. Dr. Jim Cook, who suffered no fools, especially me, and for those of you who know Jim, you'll know what that statement means, but he certainly did not suffer me and my presentations periodically. Whether by luck or divine intervention, depending on your perspective, I was fortunate that Dr. Jim Cook agreed to take me on as a graduate student. Jim was a retired Air Force colonel, and he was old school. He did not suffer fools lightly, especially me. I distinctly recall weekly presentations where as graduate students in his pathology course, we had to orally present our morphological and etiological diagnoses on challenging cases. At the end of several of my presentations, I was critiqued with, and I apologize for the language, rat's ass. That was one of Dr. Cook's favorite phrases of displeasure, and was told to sit down and do a more thorough job of looking at the slides the next time before I made a presentation. Tough love, but it prepared me for the tougher presentations I had to make in front of corporate executives when delivering adverse safety data on promising drugs in the development pipeline. One of the easiest ways to become unpopular in the pharmaceutical research as a toxicological pathologist is to deliver show-stopping findings on promising drugs. I learned quickly to counter that I was doing my best to keep us off of 60 minutes. My first job out of graduate school was as a bench pathologist with Mead Johnson, a division of Bristol Myers Squibb, and it's where I had my first experience in toxicologic pathology. The job was strictly histopathology, and it wasn't long before I wanted more involvement with a range of toxicology study data. After passing the pathology boards, I took a position at Dow Pharmaceuticals as a pathologist, but one that was more actively involved with interpreting all pathology data from all toxicology studies. Another point to remember, hopefully, some of you, union cards. Collect as many of them as you can so you can differentiate yourself from the competition. This is something that I always used to talk to students about. You have to remember that you're in competition. You're constantly in competition, and you have to look at those things that differentiate you from your competitors. In the case of my profession, union cards such as the pathology and the toxicology boards were two important union cards to have. So that the pathology was not being enough, I pursued the toxicology boards and I got more involved in the drug development process. Excuse me. I pursued an in-depth study of pharmaceutical development from both a scientific and a business perspective. This is another important one. Sometimes I think we as veterinarians sell ourselves short. Why is it that a veterinary pathologist can't be a corporate executive? When I started in the pharmaceutical business, especially in non-clinical drug development, pathologists were taught to read slides, stay in their office, and we were obviously paid very well. But the individuals running the operation in those days were primarily pharmacologists. And now there are numerous pathologists that have broken through that. In the 1980s, I pursued my first management position. So in the 1980s, as a department head, this was a step out of my comfort zone, but one in which I never looked back. I actively pursued successive management positions, culminating in my appointment as vice president of non-clinical drug safety for one of the predecessor companies to Sanofi Adventus. Becomes a little more controversial. So you think you want to become dean? I didn't hear but one or two people who think they want to become dean. So I can look at my former deans. In the mid-1990s, I received a phone call from George Kinney. Is George in the audience? No, probably not. Good, I can say this then. A friend and colleague and a mentor asking if I would be interested in becoming dean. I recall discussions with my wife and colleagues who admonished me that while an honor, I should think carefully about reinventing myself. Academic administration is a different beast, they caution. Is giving up the perks of a corporate executive wise, my financially astute MBA wife said. As most of you know, I was offered and accepted the position. To this day, it was one of the greatest honors of my life to have served the college. You may ask or wonder why, if such a great honor, was it such a short tenure? The decision, while difficult, was ultimately straightforward. My strengths were in rapidly assessing opportunities and aggressively pursuing them. After all, successful business leaders are paid to assimilate, interpret, and act on data. They are to be visionary. Their success is based on their ability to act quickly and successfully. Management through lengthy consensus building is not usually high on the decision-making priorities in business. While I hope I left the college better off than when I arrived, I realized it was most appropriate to hand the leadership over to those better suited in leading through consensus building. So back to industry and corporate management. I took an executive management position at Covance Laboratories, now a part of Charles River, as Vice President of Global Toxicology. One of my assignments was to evaluate the Phoenix area for a new research facility to meet the needs of our West Coast clients. During one of the several trips to the Phoenix area, Scottsdale area, I met with the senior management of Mayo Clinic, Arizona, to discuss possible joint collaborations, and those meetings turned into another opportunity to reinvent myself. The Mayo Clinic senior management approached me in 2004 and asked if I would be interested in joining Mayo Clinic, Arizona. Ultimately, I would wear several hats: Professor of Experimental Therapeutics and Pharmacology, Director of Core Laboratories, Associate Director of Research in Arizona, Director of the Center for Procedural Innovation. I'm going to spend a couple minutes on the CPI, the Center for Procedural Innovation. In 2007, I was charged with building and staffing the Procedural Skills Laboratory. The Center for Procedural Innovation, this is a photograph of it in action. It's a 6,000 square foot, fully equipped research facility for teaching procedural and surgical skills and developing innovative technologies. After being open for a few years, I was approached with an opportunity to work with a team of physicians and support staff that had developed a comprehensive teaching program training first-line individuals deployed across the globe in trauma survival, surgical skills, and in austere environments. And I can't get into more depth and detail about who those individuals were. I touch on this segment in my career in reinvention as it brings me back to my days as an EMT. Again, I promised you I would circle back. The experience of functioning in times of chaos and calmly establishing order as an EMT some ways prepared me for the challenges that can occur when managing multiple severely compromised patients. And that's what's going on here. These patients are severely compromised. Perhaps I'm a frustrated trauma physician. More time were available in my life, it could have been my next career. This is primarily for my academic colleagues here, and I ask you maybe to take a look at this or think about it after the presentation. Mayo Clinic is an organization that fosters the development of Mayo Clinic brand, which is important, and its staff. And I want to explore some aspects of that, and especially intellectual property development. This may catch the interest of, again, my academic colleagues. Point to consider. Not necessarily what you know, but the relationships you have fostered. Dr. Tony Sun. Around 2007, I was approached by Dr. Tony Sun, a partner at Aisling Capital, a prominent venture capital firm, to become the CEO of Bridge Laboratories, a contract research organization. The compensation package and challenge were appealing, but given my wife's health, I wanted to make sure she had the best medical care in the country. So how do you navigate an appointment at Mayo Clinic and simultaneously pursue professional challenges? I was fortunate to work closely with Mayo Clinic's Director of Intellectual Property, and together we devised a proposal to submit to the Medical Industrial Relations Committee, who oversees activities outside of the Mayo Clinic, and it was called an executive on loan, and I was the executive on loan. The program was accepted. Mayo Clinic negotiated, and I think this should catch the interest of many of you, negotiated significant financial royalties in stock and cash with me as the executive on loan. So I held down 2 positions, one at Mayo Clinic and one with Bridge Laboratories. Not who you know, but what you know. Dr. Boliang Liu and Pharmaron Board of Directors. As the interim CEO and CSO of Bridge Laboratories, I assisted Pharmaron Laboratories, a competing CRO, in acquisition of the company through a personal relationship with Dr. Liu, who's the CEO of Pharmaron Laboratories in Beijing, China. I met him at a research symposium in San Diego where I gave a lecture on non-clinical drug development. I subsequently, once he purchased the company, I subsequently served on the board of directors for Pharmaron for several years. Why do I tell you this? And this may be controversial for some of you, but why do I tell you this? It was and it remains that the most significant intellectual property at any organization is not necessarily in documented notebooks and on computer hard drives, but instead the knowledge and wisdom between your ears. I can get this to go up. Dr. Tony Frank. Dr. Tony Frank and the Colorado State University Ventures interim CEO and board of directors. In the 1980s, as an adjunct professor at Purdue University, I mentored Tony in veterinary pathology. So again, you never know who's going to turn out. He's obviously a very important individual in the state of Colorado university system. Tony asked me if I'd consider a position at Colorado State University on their Ventures Board of Directors, and I accepted, and for a period of time also served as the interim CEO. I helped them transition the organization through a challenging time. The relationship in my early investment, the relationship at CSU led to my early investment in a startup battery company. Not who you know, but what you know. And no, I have minimal knowledge on battery technology and energy storage. But I do recognize innovative ideas and management, and I enjoy interfacing with people who are smarter than me. Again, not what you know, but who you know, and surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. As a pathologist, you can imagine it comes full circle. In 2018, after retiring from the Mayo Clinic, I started my own toxicology and pathology and consulting business with my pathology assistant, Peter Knox. Peter Knox's job is to lie by the microscope, occasionally rearrange piles of slides. He works for cat treats. He has a clause in his employment agreement that stipulates that his medical care is only provided by a competent clinical veterinarian, and he insists that that's someone other than me. And yes, he stays inside away from hot cars. It has been a career well lived and still living. Again, I want to thank you for this opportunity to share my non-traditional career. I hope that the experiences will in some way stimulate you to think broadly about your career in veterinary medicine. And again, I want to thank you for awarding me as the 2025 Alumni Fellow. I have one last slide. This is something, again, hopefully you can take home. This is from Vince Lombardi, paraphrased. I leave you with a modified quote. I trust that many of you recognize him as one of the world's greatest football coaches. When you look back over your career, the measure of what you accomplished is what you did with what you had. Thank you very much. Oh, questions?
It still doesn't work.
Okay, we have a few minutes for questions. Does anybody have questions for Dr. Marler?
It was that stimulating that you had no question. We can always go back to the histopathology slides if you
We
prefer.
can. Yes, Dr. Mulcahy.
Dr. Marler, I have a question about what you talked about for stepping outside your comfort zone and challenges and maybe doing new things. A lot of businesses, universities, teams hire based on best fit, which doesn't always go along with something new or challenging, or maybe a person who looks different to the rest of your team. What would you say about not always going with best fit if you're hiring someone or if you're choosing a job?
That's a good question. I'd have to say, again, maybe I'm a poster child. I was probably never the best fit for many of the positions that I applied for. But once you get in there, you learn, I think, how to interact with your other colleagues. I don't think there's an easy answer to your question. I would just say be yourself. There have been positions that I have applied for in my career over my lifetime that I did not get, and I always wondered the reason why. But that didn't stop me trying for the next position. Once you get a resume, okay, your resume will carry a lot of weight. It's difficult, I think, today, and I'm going to talk to Brandon tomorrow about how to break into the field of toxicologic pathology. In my day, if you could read a histopathology slide and you could breathe, okay, you got hired by industry. That's not the way it is today. Today, you have to have those union cards to get in. So I would caution all of you today, it's a little bit different than in my day. You've got to look at what differentiates you. Once you set up those differentiations, other people will recognize your talents. And, you know, I can only speak from a business perspective. Businesses are in the business of making money. Okay, so they're going to look for good people that help them with the mission and the stockholders involved. So I would just say, keep doing what you're doing and try to look at differentiating your career. Okay, does that help? Yes. Okay.
Other questions?
Ron, you said you were trained under Jim Cook. He was, I think, in one of the first classes at Oklahoma State University and trained at AFIP.
Yep.
But he was in World War II, I think, before he went to vet school.
That's correct.
And some say he was in the Bataan Death March. Did he ever talk to you about that? Or
Now, Jim was, I mean, those of you who knew Jim, and like I said, I consider him a father figure. I was, and please, if you're a graduate student out there, don't pay attention to me. Do what your major professor tells you to do. I was kind of a rascally graduate student. I was known to have to be corralled periodically. And Jim would always call me in his office and tell me, Ron, you just need to calm down a little bit here. Things will be okay. But Jim was pretty close. I don't ever remember him talking about it.
Hi, Dr. Marler. I have a question. What would be your advice for navigating a career in a financial downtime?
Like the supposed recession that's coming up?
Yeah.
It won't happen. That's the first thing. So, I think you have to be prepared. If you're talking about financial things, we could spend a whole nother day talking about financial things. The old rules about having 6 months of salary banked away, et cetera, are true. It was true even in my era when I would start looking for jobs. I never took risk at taking a job until I knew that financially my family was very stable. So you need to work on those things first, regardless of whether you're just getting started or you've been out there for a while. However you define financial stability, those are the most important things first, and then you can be a little more cavalier with what you want to do. But I would just say the rule of thumb is roughly 6 months to a year of financial stability, however you define that, okay?
Other questions? Tell us about your best memory as a DVM student.
Ooh, this sounds like This sounds like a Sharon. Where is Joan? Joan is, she's still here? Yeah. Here is a story that I'm going to relay as part of the history. I was teaching veterinary pathology when I was a graduate student, and I was in the necropsy room back in Old Dykstra. And I was fairly strict on how we were doing things, and I had cautioned the students that you have to be very careful about cattle who come in, who have been out in the Kansas summer and are brought in for necropsy because they bloat tremendously, kind of like lomita, they pop. And there is a special way that one can open up the abdominal cavity in cattle without being injured. And so I cautioned them, I said, these rumens are under tremendous amounts of pressure, and you need to be very careful because you can be injured doing this. Well, obviously I didn't pay much attention to what I was teaching, and I accidentally punctured the rumen of this particular bull that was in there, and it blew me against the wall with all kinds of fecal content all over me. And the students I remember in there, they didn't know whether to help me or laugh at me or what to do. But that I distinctly remember. And I just got up and I just kind of wiped things off and went ahead with the procedure. But
So you mentioned you had little to no clinical experience in your career. Something I hear a lot is that I should get clinical experience after finishing my PhD here, I guess, and I already have the DVM. How do you expect that to impact my career versus how it impacted yours, just kind of looking ahead?
I think you have to decide, in a sense, what do you want to do in life? And when I went through vet school, it was clearly I wanted to be the best small animal practitioner. I was given the proficiency award as a senior student, and that was my life. I had in my mind that I was going to approach the Walton family and put in veterinary clinics and Walmarts. This was way before anybody had even thought that somebody had stolen that idea from me, but I thought this is the way to go. We kind of have a hub and spoke kind of arrangement, so that was kind of the background. And then I went to the military, and we had a very small clinic and very little practice involved. And I got more involved in the pathology thing, and it just kind of took off from there. I think you just have to decide what you want to do. Once I went into pathology, except for dabbling as a make-believe surgeon at the CPI, that was about my experience. The nice thing about your education in veterinary medicine is, again, our patients in the CPI were all severely compromised patients. That's the reason they were there, so the attendees could go through a variety of procedures in trying to rectify what was going on. So to participate in that was a dream to me. To do that, however, I had to go back and re-educate myself. So I spent a tremendous amount of time going back over anesthesiology, respiratory physiology, surgical techniques, et cetera, just to be able to handle those patients, much less to communicate with my colleagues at Mayo Clinic. And these are some of the smartest intensivists and surgeons I've ever been around in my life. So that was kind of the fun thing to do. Again, the only thing I can tell you is you just have to decide what you want to do and go after it, okay? If you want to practice small animal, I applaud you. But if you want to be a pathologist, I applaud you even more.
Thank you, Dr. Marler. We'd like to present you with a crystal that has a hologram
Thank you.
of the Kind Touch statue, which is right out front there,
Good.
and was commissioned by Ralph Richardson, and we're so delighted you were here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you.
We're going to do some pictures outside,
Oh,
too, by your
okay.
sign, but let's do a picture with this.
Did I see you drive up Scenic Drive? Did you see me? Okay. We'll pick me up.